Commander Zixtal adjusted his crystalline sensory apparatus as the massive Terran vessel emerged from the quantum fold. The human ship was ugly by galactic standards, all brutal angles and excessive armor plating where most civilized species preferred elegant curves and artistic designs. The Terrans had been part of the Galactic Federation for only 3 solar cycles, barely enough time to learn proper diplomatic protocols, yet here they were, responding to the Zephyrian distress call.
Analysis complete, Commander, reported his science officer, Lieutenant Velnara. Her blue-scaled hands danced across the bioneural interface. The Terran vessel designation UES Relentless carries approximately 800 crew members.
Their technology appears crude but functional. Multiple weapon systems detected, though their energy signatures are unusual. Zixtal's throat sacs inflated slightly, a sign of mild concern among his people. The Zephyrians had been spacefaring for over 2,000 years, had seen the rise and fall of a dozen galactic civilizations, and had developed an eye for recognizing dangerous species. The humans worried him in a way he couldn't articulate.
Open communications, he ordered. The main view screen shimmered, revealing the bridge of the human vessel.
The first thing that struck Zixtal was how chaotic it appeared compared to the serene, orderly bridges of other Federation ships. Crew members moved with urgent purpose, multiple conversations occurred simultaneously, and warning lights flashed in patterns that would give most species sensory overload. A human female stepped forward, her dark skin bearing several scars that would have been easily removed by any civilized medical technology. She wore a uniform that was purely functional, lacking the ceremonial elements most species favored for diplomatic contact.
"This is Captain Sarah Chen of the UES Relentless," she said, her voice carrying an undertone that made Zixtal's sensory tendrils twitch. "We received your distress signal. What's your situation?"
Zixtal composed himself, drawing on centuries of diplomatic training.
"Greetings, Captain Chen. I am Commander Zixtal of the Zephyrian exploration vessel Harmony Song. We appreciate your response, though I must inform you that the situation may be beyond your capabilities. We are under siege by Skarn raiders." The human captain's expression didn't change, but something shifted in the atmosphere of her bridge. The background chatter ceased, and Zixtal noticed that every human present had suddenly focused their attention on him with an intensity that was frankly unsettling. "Skarn?"
Captain Chen asked, her voice carrying a dangerous edge.
"How many ships?"
15 vessels of various classes, Zixtal replied, consulting his tactical display. 3 heavy cruisers, 7 destroyers, and 5 fighters. They've been systematically destroying our defensive platforms for the past 6 hours. Our shields are at 30% capacity, and our weapon systems are largely depleted. I must warn you, Captain, that retreat would not be dishonorable. The Skarn are known for their brutality and superior firepower. Something that humans called a smile spread across Captain Chen's face, though Zixtal had studied enough human expressions to recognize that this particular smile had nothing to do with happiness or pleasure. It was the expression of a predator that had just spotted prey.
"Commander, with respect, you don't know humans very well yet," she said. "Patch us through to the Skarn frequency." Zixtal's sensory apparatus twitched in confusion. "Captain, surely you don't intend to negotiate with them?"
The Skarn don't accept surrender from species they consider inferior. Who said anything about surrender? The human asked, that predatory smile widening. The tactical officer, a pale human male with cybernetic implants replacing his left eye, spoke up. "Captain, I'm reading Skarn vessel signatures. Looks like a standard raiding formation. They're holding position approximately 50,000 kilometers off the Zephyrian vessel's port side." "Perfect," Captain Chen said. "Open a channel to the Skarn fleet commander." The view screen split, showing both the human captain and a massive, reptilian creature whose scales seemed to absorb light. The Skarn were one of the galaxy's most feared predatory species, standing 3 meters tall with natural armor plating and claws capable of rending most materials. They had been raiding the outer systems for decades, and no single Federation vessel had ever successfully engaged them. The Skarn commander's voice was a low growl that resonated through the ship's hull. "Unknown vessel, you will withdraw immediately or be destroyed. We claim this system and all vessels within it." Captain Chen leaned forward slightly, and Zixtal was amazed to see that she showed no sign of the fear that any rational being should feel when facing a Skarn war leader. "This is Captain Chen of the United Earthship Relentless. The vessel you're attacking is under Federation protection. You will cease hostilities and withdraw from this system immediately." The Skarn commander's laugh was like grinding metal. "Foolish mammal. Your ship is small and alone. We are 15. Do your primitive calculations not function?" "Oh, they function just fine," Captain Chen replied. "But you seem to be operating under a misconception. You're not facing one ship. You're facing humans." The Skarn's expression shifted to one of confusion. "What difference does the species make? Flesh burns the same in vacuum." Captain Chen's smile became something that made Zixtal's blood run cold. "You're about to find out." The human captain turned to her crew. "All hands, battle stations. Tactical, prepare firing solutions. Communications, send the following message to Earth Command: Skarn raiders engaging Federation vessel. Requesting backup for prisoner transport." The tactical officer looked up from his console. "Captain, backup is 4 days out." "Not for us," she replied. "For the Skarn." Zixtal watched in fascination and growing alarm as the human ship transformed. What had appeared to be crude armor plating suddenly reconfigured, revealing weapon ports that had been completely hidden. The ship's energy signature spiked dramatically, and his sensors began registering power levels that should have been impossible for a vessel of that size. "Captain," Zixtal said urgently, "I must strongly advise against engaging the Skarn. Their technology is far superior to most Federation species. Even our newest warships require at least 3-to-1 odds to successfully engage a single Skarn cruiser." Captain Chen turned to look at him, and, for a moment, Zixtal understood why humans had evolved as an apex predator species. Her eyes held a cold calculation that spoke of a mind designed for warfare. "Commander, you're thinking like prey," she said simply. "Humans don't think like prey." The Skarn commander apparently decided that the conversation had gone on long enough. "You have 10 seconds to withdraw, human, or we will demonstrate why the galaxy fears us." "Counteroffer," Captain Chen replied. "You have 5 seconds to surrender, or we'll demonstrate why you should fear us." The Skarn's roar of rage was cut off as the communications channel closed. Almost immediately, Zixtal's sensors registered the Skarn fleet moving into attack formation, their weapons charging to full power. "They're targeting us," the human tactical officer reported with what Zixtal was amazed to hear was eagerness rather than fear. "Perfect," Captain Chen said. "All weapons, prepare to fire. Helm, attack pattern Delta 7. Let's show these lizards how humans dance." What happened next would haunt Zixtal's dreams for years to come and fundamentally alter his understanding of human nature. The UES Relentless didn't just attack the Skarn fleet. It transformed into something that defied every conventional understanding of space combat. The ship moved with an agility that should have been impossible for its size, spinning and rolling through space in patterns that would have liquefied the internal organs of most species but somehow left the humans functioning perfectly. The human weapons were unlike anything Zixtal had ever encountered. Instead of the elegant energy beams favored by most civilized species, the humans used a combination of exotic technologies that seemed designed for maximum psychological impact as much as physical damage. Kinetic projectiles that moved at significant fractions of light speed, plasma bursts that burned with the fury of stellar cores, and something the humans called hellbore cannons that seemed to tear holes in reality itself. But what truly shocked Zixtal was not the technology, but the tactics. Every other species in the galaxy engaged in space combat with careful precision, elegant maneuvers, and a focus on minimizing casualties. Space battles were typically formal affairs, with predetermined engagement zones and established rules of conduct. Humans, apparently, had never heard of such rules. The UES Relentless didn't engage the Skarn fleet. It hunted them. The ship would appear to retreat, drawing pursuing vessels into carefully prepared kill zones where hidden minefields would detonate, or friendly fire from other Skarn ships would accidentally target their own allies. When the Skarn attempted to form defensive formations, the humans would launch what they called boarding torpedoes, small craft that somehow penetrated Skarn shields and delivered human soldiers directly onto enemy ships. Zixtal watched in horrified fascination as these human soldiers, wearing bulky armor that made them look like mechanical demons, systematically captured Skarn vessels from the inside. The combat footage that leaked through the communications systems showed humans fighting in environments that would kill most species, shrugging off wounds that should have been fatal, and displaying a ferocity that made the supposedly savage Skarn look civilized by comparison. But the most terrifying aspect was the human coordination. They fought not as individuals, but as a single organism with 800 bodies. Every human on the ship seemed to instinctively know what their shipmates were thinking. They anticipated each other's actions, covered each other's weaknesses, and moved with a precision that spoke of thousands of years of evolution as pack hunters. Within 30 minutes, the engagement was over. 12 Skarn vessels had been captured intact. 2 had been completely destroyed when their crews chose self-destruction over surrender. 1 had managed to escape, though Zixtal noticed that the humans made no effort to pursue it. "Why did you let one escape?" he asked Captain Chen as the immediate threat passed. Her predatory smile returned. "Same reason ancient human hunters would let one buffalo escape a hunt," she said. "So it could go back to the herd and warn them what happens when you threaten the pack." As the UES Relentless moved to assist with repairs to the Harmony Song, Zixtal found himself studying the human crew with new eyes. They moved about their duties with casual efficiency, treating the complete destruction of a superior force as just another day's work. They joked with each other, shared food, and showed genuine concern for wounded shipmates. But underneath the veneer of civilization, Zixtal could now see something that chilled him to his core. These beings had evolved from something that had clawed its way to the top of a food chain through pure savagery and had then somehow managed to retain that killer instinct while building a technological civilization. "Captain," he said quietly as she prepared to return to her ship, "may I ask you a question?" "Of course, Commander. In all our databases, humans are listed as a peaceful species. You seek diplomatic solutions, you value art and philosophy, you show remarkable compassion for other beings. How do you reconcile that with this?" He gestured toward the captured Skarn vessels. Captain Chen was quiet for a moment, and, when she spoke, her voice carried a weight that seemed to encompass the entire history of human civilization. "Commander, humans learned long ago that the only way to preserve peace is to be so utterly terrifying in war that nobody wants to fight you. We are peaceful because we are strong enough to choose peace. We value art and philosophy because we've earned the luxury of survival. And we show compassion for other beings because we remember what it was like when nobody showed compassion for us." She paused, looking out at the stars beyond the viewscreen. "Every human child learns about the monsters that used to hunt us in the dark. We learn to become monsters ourselves so that our children would never have to fear the dark again. The galaxy may see us as primitive or crude, but they should understand one thing: we are not cruel by nature. We are cruel by necessity. And we are very, very good at it." As the human ship departed, Zixtal transmitted his report to the Zephyrian High Command. But he found himself struggling to put into words what he had witnessed. How do you explain to a peaceful, civilized species that they now shared the galaxy with something that had retained the soul of an apex predator while building starships? The answer came to him as he watched the UES Relentless disappear into quantum fold space: you don't explain it. You just hope that the humans continue to consider you a friend rather than prey. And you never, ever give them a reason to show you what they're really capable of when the safety of their pack is threatened. In his final report, Zixtal wrote a single line that would echo through Galactic Federation databases for generations: recommend immediate revision of human threat assessment. Previous classifications were based on incomplete data. Humans are not a peaceful species that can fight. They are a warrior species that chooses peace. That distinction, he realized, made all the difference in the galaxy. Admiral Theknara of the Eltarian Defense Force had commanded stellar fortifications for over 40 standard years. She had overseen the defense of 3 star systems, supervised the construction of orbital defense platforms, and earned respect throughout the galaxy for her strategic brilliance. She had never, in all those years, felt the cold grip of true helplessness. Until today. She stood on the command deck of Kepler Station, the pride of Federation engineering, watching her tactical displays with growing despair. The station was a marvel of collaborative technology, built by 7 different species over 2 decades. Its shields could withstand the impact of small asteroids, its weapons could punch through the armor of any known warship, and its position at the mouth of the Kepler-7 wormhole made it the most strategically important installation in the sector. None of that mattered now. The hegemony had come in force. Not raiders or pirates, but the full military might of the Kregstar Empire, a species that had conquered 17 star systems in the past century through sheer brutality and overwhelming numbers. Their fleet darkened the space around Kepler Station like a swarm of mechanical locusts, over 200 vessels of various classes, all bristling with weapons designed for one purpose: total annihilation.
Status report, Theknara commanded, though she already knew the answer would be grim.
Commander Veltan, her chief tactical officer, consulted his displays with trembling hands.
Perimeter defense platforms 7 through 15 have been destroyed. Platforms 3, 9, and 12 are offline with critical damage.
Station shields are at 47% and falling.
We're detecting massive energy buildups from the hegemony dreadnoughts. Theknara's secondary heart sank. The hegemony dreadnoughts were kilometer-long monstrosities that carried enough firepower to crack planetary crusts.
3 of them hung in space like mechanical death gods, their main batteries charging for what would certainly be the killing blow. Federation response, she asked, though hope was rapidly fading.
The nearest fleet is 6 days out, Veltan reported. The Centauri defense wing could be here in 4 days, but...
He gestured helplessly at the tactical display. They all knew that the station would be nothing but debris long before any help could arrive.
A communication alert chimed across the bridge.
Theknara straightened her ceremonial armor, preparing to receive what would likely be a surrender demand from the hegemony commander. Instead, a familiar blue-scaled face appeared on the viewscreen.
Admiral Theknara, said Commander Zixtal of the Zephyrian Deep Space Patrol, we received your distress signal. Help is on the way.
Despite everything, Theknara felt a flicker of hope. The Zephyrians had one of the most advanced fleets in the Federation. Commander, I appreciate your response, but I must inform you that the situation is hopeless.
We're facing over 200 hegemony vessels, including 3 dreadnoughts. Unless you're bringing the entire Zephyrian Grand Fleet, I cannot recommend. Admiral, Zixtal interrupted, his throat sacs displaying the color pattern that among his people indicated absolute certainty. I'm not bringing the Zephyrian fleet. I'm bringing something better. I'm bringing humans.
Theknara blinked her primary eyes in confusion.
Humans?
Commander, with respect, the human navy is still in its infancy. They've been part of the Federation for barely 3 years.
What could they possibly do against the hegemony?
Zixtal's expression carried memories of something terrible and wonderful.
Admiral, transmit all your tactical data to the approaching human fleet.
Tell your people to find whatever cover they can and hold on tight.
And, whatever you do, don't try to help them. Humans fight differently than the rest of us. The communication ended, leaving Theknara staring at a blank screen. A human fleet?
She called up her intelligence files on human military capabilities and felt her hope crumble further. According to Federation databases, the humans had exactly 7 deep space vessels of military configuration, all of them smaller than standard Federation cruisers and built with technology that seemed primitive compared to Altarian standards. Admiral, her communications officer called out, I'm detecting quantum fold signatures. Multiple vessels emerging from hyperspace.
How many? Theknara asked, trying to calculate whether any number of human ships could possibly make a difference against such overwhelming odds.
Sensors are having difficulty getting an exact count, the officer replied, confusion evident in his voice.
The emergence signatures are unlike anything in our databases.
I'm reading at least 50 vessels, but the quantum interference is massive. 50 ships. Still hopeless odds, but perhaps enough to buy time for the civilian evacuation shuttles to clear the station.
Put it on the main viewer, Theknara ordered.
The view screen shimmered and displayed the space near the wormhole mouth. What Theknara saw there defied both her understanding of human capabilities and her her knowledge of military logistics. A fleet was emerging from quantum-fold space, but calling it a fleet seemed inadequate. Ships materialized in perfect formation, their hulls reflecting starlight in patterns that spoke of construction techniques no Federation species had mastered. These weren't the crude, functional vessels she'd seen in intelligence briefings. These were purpose-built instruments of war, elegant in their lethality. The largest vessels were easily the size of Federation dreadnoughts, but, where most military ships were built for durability and defensive capability, these human vessels radiated an aura of predatory menace. Their hulls were dark metal that seemed to absorb sensor sweeps, their weapon ports were designed to intimidate as much as destroy, and they moved through space with the coordinated precision of a hunting pack. But, what truly shocked Theknara was the sheer number of them. Her sensors finally stabilized and provided an accurate count: 237 human vessels, from massive battleships down to sleek fighters that moved like mechanical sharks through the void. Where did they come from? She whispered to herself. The humans only have 7 ships in their navy. Commander Veltan looked up from his sensor station, his face pale with disbelief. Admiral, I'm detecting multiple quantum signatures. These ships didn't just come from one location. They've been arriving from at least 15 different fold points across the sector. The implications hit Theknara like a physical blow. The humans hadn't just built a fleet. They had built multiple fleets and stationed them throughout the galaxy, hidden and waiting. Everything the Federation thought it knew about human military capabilities was apparently wrong. A new communication channel opened, and the face that appeared on the view screen made Theknara's breath catch in her throat. The human was elderly by their species standards, his hair silver and his face marked with the kind of scars that came from decades of violent experience. But his eyes held a cold intelligence that reminded her why apex predators were feared throughout the galaxy. Admiral Theknara, the human said, his voice carrying the authority of absolute command, this is Fleet Admiral Marcus Rodriguez of the United Earth Navy. We're here to assist with your little problem. Fleet Admiral, Theknara replied, trying to process what she was seeing. The Federation databases show no record of your rank or fleet designation. A smile that contained no warmth whatsoever crossed the human's features. Admiral, you're operating under the misconception that humans tell other species everything about our military capabilities. We learned a long time ago that the best defense is for your enemies to underestimate you. Before Theknara could respond, her tactical officer called out in alarm. Admiral, the hegemony fleet is moving. All vessels are advancing on our position. The dreadnoughts are charging their main batteries. Fleet Admiral Rodriguez nodded as if he'd expected this development. Admiral, I need you to do exactly what I tell you. Have all your people evacuate the outer sections of the station and move to the central core. Lock down all blast doors and activate emergency protocols. Are you planning to ram the station? Theknara asked, confused by the request. No, the human replied, that predatory smile widening. I'm planning to turn this entire system into a weapons test range. And I want to make sure your people don't get hurt by the shockwaves. What followed was not a battle in any sense that Theknara understood. It was a systematic demonstration of human military doctrine that would reshape galactic understanding of warfare. The human fleet didn't charge forward to meet the hegemony forces. Instead, they dispersed throughout the system like a pack of predators surrounding prey. Ships that had been invisible to sensors suddenly materialized from behind asteroids, planetary rings, and even the local star's corona. Theknara realized with growing awe that the humans had somehow positioned vessels throughout the entire system without anyone detecting them. The first sign that this wouldn't be a conventional engagement came when the hegemony dreadnoughts fired their main batteries at Kepler Station. The massive energy beams that could have vaporized the installation simply vanished, absorbed by some kind of defensive field that the human fleet had somehow projected. Impossible, Commander Veltan whispered. No ship-based shield system could absorb that much energy. Fleet Admiral Rodriguez's voice came over the communication channel, calm and professional. Admiral, you're seeing the result of 2 centuries of human military development. We don't just build weapons. We build systems. This entire sector is now under our tactical control.
The hegemony commander apparently realized that something was terribly wrong.
Thecnara watched as the enemy fleet began attempting to withdraw, but found their escape routes blocked by human vessels that seemed to appear from nowhere.
This is impossible, the hegemony commander's voice boomed across all frequencies. You have barely 200 ships. We outnumber you and our vessels are larger. Surrender now and we may spare your crews. Fleet Admiral Rodriguez's laughter was perhaps the most chilling sound Thecnara had ever heard.
Commander, you're making the same mistake that everyone makes when they first encounter humans in combat.
You're counting ships instead of understanding capability.
The human admiral's voice became hard as forged steel.
You have over 200 vessels. We have 37 weapons platforms.
The difference is that our weapons platforms happen to be capable of independent movement and thought. What happened next would be studied in military academies throughout the galaxy for centuries to come. The human fleet attacked not as individual ships, but as components of a single, vast weapon system. Vessels that appeared to be destroyers suddenly revealed themselves to be carrying exotic matter warheads that could destabilize the quantum structure of enemy shields. Ships that looked like support craft opened their hulls to reveal swarms of autonomous hunter-killer drones that moved through space like mechanical hornets. The human battleships didn't just fire weapons. They projected energy fields that could manipulate gravity, twist spacetime, and turn the vacuum of space itself into a weapon.
Thecnara watched in horrified fascination as entire hegemony cruiser squadrons simply ceased to exist, their atoms scattered across light-years of space by weapons that seemed to violate several fundamental laws of physics.
But what truly terrified her was the coordination. The humans fought as if every ship in their fleet shared a single mind. They anticipated each other's movements, covered each other's flanks, and moved with a precision that spoke of communication and coordination technologies far beyond anything the Federation had developed. Within 2 hours, the engagement was over. The mighty hegemony fleet, which had conquered star systems and obliterated entire planetary defense forces, had been reduced to scattered debris and a handful of surviving vessels that had been permitted to escape.
Why let any of them go? Thecnara asked as human ships began moving to assist with station repairs. Fleet Admiral Rodriguez's expression became thoughtful. Same reason we've been hiding our true capabilities, Admiral. Fear is a more powerful weapon than any gun we've ever built. Those surviving ships will carry word back to the hegemony about what happens when someone threatens Federation installations. But surely they'll prepare countermeasures, develop new strategies?
The human smile returned, but this time it carried a hint of genuine warmth.
Admiral, they'll try.
But here's the thing about humans, we don't just build weapons to fight today's war. We build them to fight tomorrow's war, and the war after that, and wars that haven't been imagined yet. As the human fleet began dispersing back to whatever hidden bases they had emerged from, Thecnara found herself re-evaluating everything she thought she knew about the galaxy's newest member species. Fleet Admiral, she called out as his image began to fade from her view screen.
Yes, Admiral? Why hide all this? Why let the galaxy believe that humans are weak and primitive? Surely revealing your capabilities would serve as a deterrent to future attacks?
Fleet Admiral Rodriguez was quiet for a long moment, and, when he spoke, his voice carried the weight of species-wide trauma.
Admiral, humans spent most of our history as prey.
We learned to hide our strengths and reveal our weaknesses because survival often depended on being underestimated. Now that we're among the stars, we've found that the same strategy works on a galactic scale. He paused, looking directly at her through the view screen.
But, understand this, we didn't build this fleet to conquer or intimidate.
We built it because we've learned that peaceful species need guardians who are willing to be monsters so that civilization can flourish. The galaxy may see us as crude or primitive, but we are the sword in the darkness, the shield between chaos and order.
And, if someone threatens that order?
Fleet Admiral Rodriguez's final smile was the expression of a species that had clawed its way to the top of the food chain and intended to stay there. Then, they learn why the galaxy should dread us. As the last human vessel disappeared into quantum-fold space, Thecnara transmitted her report to Federation Command. But, like Commander Zixtal before her, she found herself struggling to explain what she had witnessed.
How do you tell a peaceful galaxy that they were being protected by something that had transformed warfare itself into an art form? How do you explain that their new allies were capable of casual violence on a scale that dwarfed anything in recorded history? In her final report, she wrote, "Human military capabilities exceed all previous estimates by several orders of magnitude. Recommend immediate reclassification of human threat assessment and suggest that all future military planning assume human technological and tactical superiority in any conflict scenario." Then, she sat back and wondered whether the galaxy was safer or more dangerous now that it knew the truth about its guardians. Dr. Kreshta had always prided herself on being a scientist first and a politician second. As the chief xenobiologist for the Federation Research Institute, she had studied hundreds of species across the galaxy, documenting their evolution, psychology, and social structures with clinical detachment. She believed that knowledge and understanding could solve any problem, that rational discourse could overcome any conflict. She had never been more wrong about anything in her life. The Vectar Dominion had swept through the Arcturus system like a plague of mechanical death, their bioships leaving nothing but scorched worlds and enslaved populations in their wake. Arcturus Prime, once home to 12 million civilians from 17 different species, was now a nightmare of organic machinery and screaming captives being processed for the Dominion's horrific experiments. The Vectar weren't just conquerors. They were gardeners, cultivating entire species for specific biological traits before harvesting them for genetic material. They had turned the art of war into a science, and the science of biology into an abomination. Dr. Kreshta crouched in the ruins of what had once been the Federation's most advanced research facility, her forearms clutching a datapad that contained the only surviving records of the Dominion's activities. Around her, the remnants of her research team huddled in the shadows, waiting for the inevitable moment when Vectar hunting constructs would find their hiding place. Dr. Kreshta, whispered her assistant, a young Centauri named Velnus, "The long-range sensors are detecting incoming ships." Multiple signatures. Kreshta's hope died before it could fully form. They had sent dozens of distress calls over the past 3 days, but any rescue fleet would have to punch through an entire Dominion battle group to reach the surface. The Vectar had been fighting galactic powers for over a century, and their biotechnology was generations ahead of anything the Federation could field. "How many ships?" she asked, more from scientific curiosity than any real hope of survival. Velnus consulted her scanner, her expression shifting from despair to confusion. "I'm reading 47 vessels, but the signatures are strange. They're not broadcasting Federation identification codes." "Dominion reinforcements," Kreshta concluded grimly. "They must be bringing more harvesting ships." But then, the shooting started. The sound that echoed across Arcturus Prime wasn't the organic whining of Vectar bioweapons. It was something else entirely, a sharp crackling that spoke of exotic energy discharges and weapons that operated on principles the Federation had never mastered. "Dr. Kreshta," Velnus called out, her voice carrying a note of impossible hope, "I'm detecting massive energy spikes in orbit. Someone is engaging the Dominion fleet." Kreshta activated her scanner and nearly dropped it in shock. The orbital battle that was unfolding above them defied every tactical doctrine in Federation military manuals. Unknown ships were fighting the Vectar biofleet with a ferocity and effectiveness that seemed impossible. A communication signal pierced the electromagnetic chaos of the battle, broadcast on Federation emergency frequencies. "Attention all Federation personnel on Arcturus Prime," a voice said, speaking in accented but clear galactic standard. "This is Colonel Sarah Mitchell of the United Earth Marine Corps. We are conducting liberation operations. Mark your positions with any available signal source and prepare for immediate evacuation." Kreshta's throat sacs constricted in shock. "Humans? Here?" The newest Federation member species had somehow detected their distress calls and mounted a rescue operation in the heart of Dominion space? Velnus, respond to their signal. Tell them we're scientists, not military personnel. We have critical intelligence about Dominion operations. The response came immediately, and the voice that answered carried an undertone that made Kreshta's sensory tendrils twitch with recognition. She had heard that tone before, in the roars of apex predators from a dozen different worlds. "Copy that, document." This is Lieutenant Williams. We've got your position marked. Be advised, we're about to turn this area into a very unfriendly place for the bugs. Stay down, stay quiet, and trust us to do our job. What followed was not a rescue operation in any sense that Kreshta understood from military manuals. It was a systematic extermination campaign that demonstrated why humans had evolved as the ultimate pack hunters. The first sign that this wouldn't be a conventional operation came when the sky above them began to rain fire. But it wasn't random bombardment. Somehow, the human ships in orbit were precisely targeting every vector position while leaving Federation personnel completely untouched. Kreshta watched through her scanner as bioconstructs that had been hunting her team for days simply evaporated under pinpoint energy strikes. Then, the humans arrived. Kreshta heard them before she saw them, a rhythmic thundering that shook the ground and made her bones vibrate. When they came into view, she understood why every predator species in the galaxy had learned to fear the sound of human footsteps. They weren't wearing standard Federation combat gear. These humans were encased in powered armor that made them look like mechanical demons, each suit standing over 2 meters tall and bristling with weapons that seemed designed for close-quarters slaughter rather than precise military engagement. They moved in perfect coordination, each warrior covering their companion's flanks while advancing with relentless purpose. But what truly shocked Kreshta was how they fought. The Federation military doctrine emphasized minimizing casualties and preserving enemy assets for intelligence gathering. Humans, apparently, had never heard of such concepts. They attacked the vector bioconstructs with a savagery that bordered on religious fervor. Where Federation soldiers would use precise energy weapons to disable enemy equipment, humans used weapons that seemed designed to inspire terror as much as cause damage. They carried firearms that fired explosive projectiles, energy weapons that burned with the fury of stellar cores, and close combat weapons that could cleave through bioarmor like it was soft tissue. But the most disturbing aspect wasn't their weapons. It was their coordination. Kreshta was a xenobiologist, trained to recognize pack behavior across hundreds of species. What she saw in the human marines was pack hunting refined to an art form that transcended biology. They moved as a single organism with dozens of bodies, anticipating each other's actions, covering each other's weaknesses, and displaying a level of tactical coordination that spoke of evolutionary pressure no other species had endured. "Dr. Kreshta," a voice called out, and she turned to see one of the armored humans approaching. The warrior's helmet retracted, revealing a scarred human female with eyes that held the cold calculation of a natural killer. "I'm Lieutenant Williams," the human said, her voice carrying the same predatory undertone Kreshta had heard over the communications. "We're here to get you out." "Lieutenant," Kreshta replied, struggling to maintain her scientific composure, "the Dominion has established harvesting facilities across the planet. There are thousands of civilians being held in processing centers." Lieutenant Williams' expression shifted to something that made Kreshta's blood run cold. "Doc, we know. We've been monitoring Dominion activities for the past 6 months. That's why we're here." Before Kreshta could ask what she meant, the ground began to shake with approaching footsteps. Not human footsteps, but the distinctive rhythm of vector assault constructs, biomechanical warriors that stood 3 meters tall and carried weapons grown from living metal. "Contact front," one of the Marines called out, raising a weapon that looked like it could punch holes through starship hulls. What followed was a lesson in why humans had earned their place as the galaxy's newest apex predator. The vector assault constructs were among the most feared warriors in the galaxy. They were fast, nearly indestructible, and equipped with bioweapons that could adapt to enemy tactics in real time. Any rational military force would have called for orbital support and attempted to withdraw. The humans charged. Kreshta watched in horrified fascination as the Marine squad transformed into something that defied every understanding of rational behavior. They didn't seek cover or attempt to minimize risk. Instead, they attacked the bioconstructs with a combination of advanced technology and primitive savagery that spoke of a species that had earned its place at the top of the food chain through sheer violence. The Marines' weapons were unlike anything in Federation arsenals. They carried rifles that fired what appeared to be miniaturized fusion charges, sidearms that projected controlled black holes, and close combat weapons that seemed to tear through reality itself.
But what made them truly terrifying was how they used these weapons. Where other species fought with precision and calculation, humans fought with passion and fury. They moved through the battle like dancers, each step calculated to maximize damage while minimizing exposure. They coordinated their attacks with a precision that spoke of genetic memory stretching back to when their ancestors hunted mammoth across frozen plains. Within minutes, the Vector assault constructs were reduced to scattered organic debris.
Jesus, one of the Marines muttered, examining the remains of a bioconstruct with professional interest. The bugs are getting tougher. This one nearly adapted to the plasma charges.
Lieutenant Williams knelt beside Kreshta, who realized she had been staring at the carnage in shock.
Doc, you okay? You look like you've seen a ghost. Lieutenant, how long have humans been fighting the Dominion? The human's expression became guarded. Officially? As of today. Unofficially?
We've been preparing for this war since the first Vector scout ship was detected in Federation space 2 years ago.
Preparing how?
Lieutenant Williams smiled, and Kreshta recognized the expression from her studies of Terran predators. Doc, humans learned a long time ago that the best time to fight a war is before your enemy knows it's started. We've been studying Dominion tactics, technology, and biology for months.
We know their weaknesses better than they do.
A new sound filled the air, and Kreshta looked up to see human dropships descending from orbit. But these weren't evacuation craft. They were assault vessels, each one disgorging dozens of armored Marines who immediately spread out to secure the area.
Lieutenant, she asked, a terrible suspicion forming in her mind, how many humans are participating in this operation? Full Marine Expeditionary Force, the human replied casually.
About 50,000 troops, plus naval support. We figured the bugs needed to learn a lesson about what happens when you threaten Federation civilians.
50,000.
Kreshta's mind reeled at the implications. The humans had deployed a military force larger than most planetary defense armies to rescue a few thousand scientists and civilians. But surely the cost in resources and personnel. Doc, Lieutenant Williams interrupted, her voice carrying a tone that brooked no argument. Humans don't do cost-benefit analysis when civilians are being tortured. We do whatever it takes to bring our people home. Over the next 6 hours, Kreshta witnessed the systematic dismantling of Dominion control over Arcturus Prime.
The humans didn't just rescue Federation personnel.
They hunted down every bioconstruct, destroyed every processing facility, and eliminated every trace of Vector presence on the planet. But what truly amazed her was how they did it. The Marines moved through the planet's cities like an unstoppable force of nature, but they showed remarkable precision in their violence.
They could distinguish between Dominion constructs and enslaved civilians with split-second accuracy.
They used weapons capable of leveling city blocks with surgical precision to avoid harming non-combatants. They displayed a level of tactical sophistication that spoke of military traditions stretching back thousands of years. And, through it all, they showed a casual attitude toward violence that chilled Kreshta to her core. "Hey, Lieutenant," one of the Marines called out as they secured another processing facility. The bugs left some kind of breeding chamber in the sublevels.
You want us to preserve it for intelligence?
Negative, Lieutenant Williams replied without hesitation.
Burn it all. Nothing the Dominion creates gets to survive.
Kreshta watched as the Marines systematically destroyed technology that could have advanced Federation understanding of bioengineering by centuries. When she protested, Lieutenant Williams' response made her reconsider everything she thought she knew about human nature.
Doc, I'm a scientist too. Before I joined the Marines, I had a PhD in xenobiology from Stanford. I understand the value of knowledge.
But some knowledge isn't worth having, and some creatures don't deserve to exist.
The Dominion chose to be monsters. We're just the exterminators.
As the operation concluded and Federation personnel were evacuated to waiting transport ships, Kreshta found herself alone with Lieutenant Williams in the ruins of the research facility.
Lieutenant, may I ask you something?
Shoot.
Why?
The Federation has military forces. There was no need for humans to risk their lives for our personnel. Lieutenant Williams was quiet for a long moment, looking out at the devastated city that the humans had liberated in a single day. "Doc, when humans first reached the stars, we found a galaxy full of species that had learned to accept certain levels of atrocity. Raids were tolerated. Slavery was overlooked. Genocide was treated as a political issue rather than a moral imperative." She turned to look at Kreshta with eyes that held the weight of species-wide determination. "We decided that was unacceptable. Humans don't negotiate with monsters. We don't seek diplomatic solutions with slavers. We don't accept that evil is just another point of view. When someone threatens innocent people, we show up and we end the threat. Permanently. But at what cost? The resources, the risk to your own people? The cost of doing nothing is always higher," the human replied simply. "Besides, we learned something important during our own history: evil only exists when good people choose to do nothing about it." As they boarded the evacuation transport, Kreshta realized that her understanding of the galaxy had fundamentally changed. She had spent her career studying the evolution of intelligence across hundreds of species. But she had never encountered a species that had evolved not just intelligence, but an absolute moral imperative backed by the capability to enforce it across interstellar distances. In her final report to the Federation Research Institute, she wrote, "Human military intervention on Arcturus Prime demonstrates capabilities that exceed all previous assessments." However, the most significant finding is not technological but psychological. Humans appear to have evolved a genetic predisposition toward protecting other species that transcends normal tribal boundaries. This represents a new form of evolutionary development that should be studied extensively. But, privately, in her personal journal, she wrote something else entirely. "Today I learned that the galaxy has acquired guardians. They call themselves human, but they are something more. They are the answer to every species that has ever looked at the stars and wondered if anyone out there would come to help when the monsters arrived in the dark." And, for the first time since the Dominion had appeared in Federation space, Dr. Kreshta slept peacefully, knowing that somewhere out there, humans were watching the dark and preparing to meet whatever monsters might emerge from it.